Hey guys, the video you're about to watch or you clicked on is done and ready. I'm actually doing this afterwards just because I felt there was a couple things I wanted to say about it. I don't even know what the point is. It's an Apple IIe I just got yesterday. Fortunately, the power supply is dead, so that's going to be fun finding a replacement. But anyways, that's besides the point. This video did not turn out how I wanted it to. It's not really a good video, even by my channel standards. It's very long. I think I'm going to try to trim it down too, and add this forward to it when I do that. But I just had a lot of problems with it, and in the end, I'm starting to suspect there was something wrong with the case, because I went so far as to, I was going to reshoot the entire video. I got a whole new like socket 7 motherboard. I tested it, it worked, and then I put it in the case and it didn't work anymore, and I took it out of the case and I tried it and it still didn't work, and that was the second motherboard that happened to. I don't think it's the power supply, because I was testing other boards with the power supply outside of the case and they were fine. They posted and booted up fine. But it seems like a couple boards, when I put them in the case, they just stopped working. And I think they're shorting out. Maybe I looked, I'm thinking maybe it's touching something in the case and it's shorting the boards out. But I mean, in the end, I had to use a motherboard, a later motherboard that for whatever reason worked. It really wasn't the initial vision. I'm just not happy with this video all that much, but to be honest, I don't feel good, and I wanted to put something out this week, and I don't really have any other ideas for right now, just because I don't feel good and I don't feel like whipping together another video, although I'm not really obligated to put out one a week or whatever. But I mean, I did put the effort into this video, so I may as well post it, right? I mean, who cares? But I did feel I needed to give this kind of warning that it's not really my best video. Who knows? Everyone may love it for all I know. I'm always surprised. The videos I don't think are going to do well are usually the ones that do the best, and the ones that I think are going to be well received usually are fairly mediocrely received. Is that a word? Mediocrely? I don't think it is. Anyway, so enjoy. If nothing else, the video is a nice, it's a show of sorry, I don't feel good. It's a show of frustration trying to put this thing together, get it to work. I suppose it may be interesting in that aspect, but yeah, I'm gonna maybe edit this together and post it today, but I don't know. I need to lay down. I have some kind of stomach flu, so bleh. Alright, anyways, thank you guys again. Try to enjoy the video. I don't think it's one of my best, but enjoy. Try to. Hey guys. So today I'm going to start a little computer project on a machine I never really had all that much interest in, just because, well, it's kind of boring. And that's this thing. And it's socket 5. So socket 5 wasn't around very long. In my opinion, it's really not that interesting. It came right after the initial Pentium, which was socket 4, and that socket 4, I did a couple videos on my socket 4 PC, and then socket 4 only supports the very first Pentium, so we're talking about the 66 and the 60 megahertz. Then of course we know later socket 7, which pretty much dominated the later part of the 90s, and it supported, you know, a ton of different CPUs, and it lasted a long time. But this kind of came in between those. This is socket 5, and it only supports, I believe, 3 different Pentiums, and maybe an AMD chip or 2 as well, and a Cyrix. I'm not sure exactly, but mostly I find these with the Pentiums in them, and that's the 75 megahertz, the 90 megahertz, and the 100 megahertz. Maybe the 120 megahertz as well, but you know, I'm not sure on that one. But you know, not the earliest Pentiums, but the earlier Pentiums, and they're really not that much different than, you know, it's a little bit more refined than the socket 4 boards, and a little less refined maybe than the socket 7s, but it's really not all that much different than from an early socket 7 board. But the reason I'm actually putting this together is because I did come across this motherboard, which is kind of neat, and I came across a case, which I'll show you in a minute. This case I got, I couldn't think of anything that I had to put in it other than this this board. I'll kind of explain that. It really doesn't have a good explanation for why, but it makes sense in my mind. So this is just a socket 5 AT board. It's a little bit long. You've got 4 16-bit ISA and 4 PCI. Now this board in particular is a Atlas board, American Megatrends Atlas. I believe it's an Atlas 1 board. I don't think this board was meant for consumer use. I think this might have been more like for businesses and whatnot. Has an AT keyboard connector. It has 2 power supply connectors, which is strange. This one, the manual for this is available online. So this connection right here is just a standard AT connection. I'm not sure what the point of this one is, though. The manual didn't even make it clear. It just says you're only supposed to use what I think like 3.3 volt external power supply. So maybe this was for like a backup power supply, which might make sense if you've got a business and your power goes down and you need, or you know, the power supply dies and you need a backup right away. That makes sense, but I don't know. If anyone knows why this is here, please let me know. A lot of stuff built into this board, you know, the parallel and serial port connections. We have 2 IDE and we have a floppy. The cache right here is, we have 256K on board, and you can add another 256K for a total of 512K of L2 cache. The CPU I'm using is a good old Pentium 90. Now the Pentium 90, in my opinion, is really one of the first sort of true Pentiums. It was one of the first chips that really could show what the Pentium could do. And it was a really high performance chip when it came out. This thing here, it looks kind of like a coin battery. I thought originally this was like a vertical coin holder, like battery holder, but I think it's some kind of voltage regulator. I'm not sure though, because the battery is right here, and it's one of those horrible infamous Dallas real-time clock batteries that it's directly soldered on the motherboard, which sucks a lot, actually. I hate those things. So yeah, I think with this build I'm going to go for just a pure 1994 build with just parts from 1994, as if this thing just came out and someone's building like the highest quality, fastest kind of computer they can do for 1994. So I'm going to try to not use any parts that aren't from like 1994 or earlier. A little bit of history with this board. I got this and it was in this this anti-static thing, and actually it's from, it says on it Pentium 90, and it has this little symbol and it says Scintillect Inc. I looked them up. There's a couple companies with that name, but I looked at the little trademark and stuff, and Phoenix. I can't figure out exactly what they did. I think they're still around, but they moved and they changed their name to like Enghouse or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what they did, but it was kind of, from what I could gather, it was sort of technology-ish. I think maybe like database stuff or communication software, some telemarketing. I don't know, something with communications and computers, I think. Not really relevant, but just kind of cool backstory to this motherboard, which I picked up at a swap meet. So let me show you the case I'm going to put this in. I'm not 100% sure on the chipset on this board. I think it's a Triton 1 or something. The RAM here is limited to 128 megabytes, which isn't a whole lot. For DOS, for 1994, that's more than enough. That's fine. But overall, it's not a ton of RAM. But I think that's a limitation of this particular chipset. So let's take a look at the tower I'm going to put this thing in. Before the tower, let's just take a closer look at this board, because I know this camera sucks from a distance, but up close it takes some pretty decent video. Decent. Still need a new camera. This is the cache, the L2 cache, 256 built in. Can add another 256. Here's my CPU, Pentium 90 with the heatsink, American Megatrends. This is the Atlas PCI board from 1994. There's that horrible Dallas. The sticker with 90, I'm guessing maybe because 90 megahertz CPU. There's our slots. There's the chipset that has the American Megatrend stickers over it, so I can't exactly see. Here's our RAM. There's that weird secondary power supply, or power connector. Let me see. Yeah, center pins, 3.3 volt only. So, yeah, weird. There's the AT keyboard. There's a little connector here for a PS2 mouse. If I have a PS2 mouse connector thing with the right pin out, that would work. And that's about it of interest with this board. So let's move on to that case. Yeah, so there we... Wait, no, not that case. That case. This thing is a giant. It's just a giant AT case, and that's it compared to the what a lot of my little AT towers are. I think it's a mini tower, but even a full-size tower would probably maybe only come up to here. Yeah, this AT case is huge. It might be about the biggest tower I've seen. I have an Amiga 4000 or 1200 that's been towerized, and I think it's in a tower that might be slightly bigger than this. I don't have it with me to compare though, but this thing, it's got the foot base, it's got the little base here, it's got the styling from the early 90s, late 80s styling that all those 486s, 386s come in to. You've got the display, the turbo, the power, the reset, the switch. I gotta put drives in here, and it's just a classy, huge case. But when I saw this case, I opened it up, and what was inside this thing was a 486 board with 100 megahertz DX4 AMD, and I mean that's fine. That's par for the course for this. That's fine. But I don't know. This case screamed like industrial high-end power, and by the time the DX4 came out, really it was the new age of the Pentium, and I was just thinking, like, this thing looks like it's so big. I can't really imagine most homes having a computer like this. This looks like something that would be in like a business or like some kind of server or like a military base computer thing where they need like a ton of hard drives and a bunch of drives, and I was like, what from this time period will work in here? So I'm thinking, I've got that Socket 5 board just hanging around that's kind of like from a business and a computer business, and I was like, the styling is a little bit old for a Pentium machine, but I could see like a business in 94, they're just upgraded to the newest, greatest CPU, they got their Pentium 90, they have this case around from, maybe they've had it for a little while, this big industrialist case, and they put it in there. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the Socket 5 Pentium 90 machine in this case, and I'm going to build a high-end 1994 machine. I love this case. It is huge. It's a little bit outrageous and over the top with its size, its height. Unfortunately, I just don't think I'm going to be able to keep this thing because it's too big. It just takes up too much room. I already got that kind of towering case that I just transferred my 386 into, and then I got this freaking Coleco Atom over there in the box. It's just, I have no space anymore. I can't keep this thing, it's just too big. But I figure, hey, I'll make a project out of it first, unless sometime in between the video or something I win the lottery and move into a bigger living space. But yeah, let's do this. Alright, so it's installed and it's posting and whatnot, but we've run into a problem, and that problem has to do with, of course, our little friend, the Dallas real-time clock here, our wonderful little buddy there. Now usually, not just usually, in every computer I have ever tinkered with, the CMOS battery, it didn't really matter if it was even there or if it was dead. The machine would work anyways. Now the biggest inconvenience for me that would usually happen if the CMOS battery was dead or you know, it corroded and I pulled it out and I didn't replace it with anything was every time I'd boot up the machine, you know, I'd have to re-enter parameters in the BIOS. So for instance, I'd have to retell the machine every time I power off and on that, you know, it has 2 floppy drives, and you know, at worst I'd have to put in the parameters for the hard drive so it would know it had a hard drive. And then, you know, you just exit and save and it would restart, and boom, you know, as long as you left it plugged in, it would remember all that stuff and it would just, you know, boot up how you set it. You know, you'd really only have to re-enter that stuff in if you actually, like, I think unplugged it or completely powered it down or something. Inconvenient, but not a deal breaker. Not with this machine. Now, I've heard of this happening in some IBM PS2s, and I have a friend that has a non-IBM PS2 machine, and it's a Pentium 1 machine, and he was telling me about this, and I was like, what's your problem? He's like, I can't get it to work. It just won't work. It's my CMOS battery. And I was like, oh, big deal. Just put in the parameters. He was like, no, it won't work. It won't get past post. I was like, that's weird. I've never heard that happening with something other than an IBM PS2. I've even had IBM PS2s that had a dead Dallas real-time clock, and I could still boot it up into the hard drive. But no, it's happened to me now. It happened to me with this board, with the clock. So wonderfully closely soldered directly into the motherboard. But basically what happens is I get to the post, and I get to this. CMOS battery state low, hit F1 to resume. Now when I hit F1, it takes me into the BIOS, which is fine. And I, you know, configure it how I want it. I detect the hard drive, I set up the floppies, then, you know, I escape and I save, escape and save to CMOS, and it restarts like it should, and it comes right back to this. So I'm kind of in a loop where it will not let me progress as long as it has that CMOS battery state lower. Now, I've even gone into the BIOS and I disable the, you know, the halt on errors. Completely resets itself even if I keep it plugged in. Just unless I replace this battery, it's garbage. It's stuck. It's like they designed this thing to fail because this thing is directly soldered in. Now these have a lifespan of about 7 years, give or take. It was designed to die. I mean, what office person is gonna, like, I know there's a trick where you can, like, cut into it with a Dremel and you can solder up a lithium battery. I'm not going to do that because really for this thing it's a waste of my time. I've never done it before. It seems like a big hassle for really not much benefit here. So that sucks. I mean, a lot of times you'll have like an external memory connector where even if the built-in battery's dead, you can just plug in a little external battery. Not this board. Nope. It needs that CMOS battery. It was engineered to fail. This board, I mean, what were you supposed to do? I mean, I guess they knew it would be obsolete and they figured people would just throw it away after 7 years, I guess. I have a backup plan, so here comes plan 2. So, what is plan B, you might be asking? Well, plan B is socket 7 board. Yeah, I know, kind of boring, and I did a video not too long ago on socket 7, but it's all I have to fall back on here. At least, you know, CPUs, or the Intel CPUs that go into socket 5 are also compatible with socket 7, so that's nice. And like you can see the two here, you could see a little bit of the refinement that went on. You know, instead of these being just, you know, open, we got, you know, this is an earlier one. This came out in 95, so it's only like 1 year, probably not even a year older than this. It's a little different. I mean, the ISA slots are white. It has this cool white molding thing going on. The AT connector is white. All the little jumpers are white. Other than that, it's mostly the same. It has, I believe this is 256K of L2 cache. There's, instead of the little sockets, there's a coast module to go up to 512 of L2 cache. think these are voltage heatsink things. It does take a little bit more RAM than this one does. This was 128. This takes up to 256 of EDO RAM, so a little bit more of an improvement there. There's also a port for a PS2 mouse. You may have seen, and you may be thinking, what are you doing? This is one of those dreaded Dallas real-time clocks too. Yeah, it does, and that sucks. But at least this board has the decency to socket it, so I have a suspicion that even if this is dead, it's gonna run, unlike this guy. But even if it doesn't, at least I can pull this thing out and I don't know, maybe attempt to do that mod to put a lithium battery on it. Or I might just put in another stupid socket 7 board that has a lithium coin holder instead. I guess we'll see. Alright, so we're almost ready to go here. I've got the operating system loaded onto the hard drive. Unfortunately, our little buddy here, the CD-ROM drive, that 2-speed, not doing so well. It's just not working. It doesn't really, the motor's messed up, the tray's messed up, it doesn't want to open, so I'm gonna have to probably take that out and either find another old one that works, or I might just have to use a modern drive. Most of my CD drives I have hanging around are more modern. I don't really have a lot of older drives. I just threw a quick fan on that CPU. It's actually not even completely straight on there, but it doesn't matter. So let's talk about video and sound. So I'm not really going for a full-blown, all-out gaming rig here, just kind of a 1994 to maybe now like very early 96 sort of rig that might, I don't really want to make something that would be like an office or something, because I do want to make it game capable, but I'm not gonna make like the ultimate you know, gaming rig for that time period. So I'm trying to stick more around 1994 technology here. So in that line of thought, for video I'm going to go with this guy, just because I've had this thing sitting around for a while. And this is an ATA Mach 32. I believe this card's called a Graphics Wonder. Yeah, it's PCI. May as well go with PCI since we've got abundant PCI slots here, and PCI is nice and matured at this point. It's a 1 megabyte card, able to be expanded to 2 megabytes, I believe. I don't know much about this card. I don't hear much about it. I know the VLB version of this is sort of very well regarded. It's one of the like highest end VLB cards, but when we get to like the PCI version, you don't really hear a lot about it. I guess it's decent for the time, for an early PCI card. I think this is from 94. It's probably the earliest PCI card I have. You know, I'm not going for a 3D build here. This is, you know, mostly trying to stick with 1994. So, you know, 3D cards didn't really start coming out until later. So I think this is a half decent 2D card for DOS, and I think I'm going to put Windows 95 on this thing. So yeah, this is what I'm going to go with for video. The Mach 32 based, I think it's called a Graphics Wonder card. Sound. A big giant case deserves a big giant sound card. Whoops. So we're going with this guy here. If I can, there we go. Can't even get the whole thing in here. Yeah, this is I believe this is a Sound Blaster 32. This isn't an 32. This is a Sound Blaster 32. It doesn't have real FM OPL3 chip on it. It doesn't have a Wave Blaster header either. But like I said, I'm not going for like an ultimate gaming rig here. This is for something that would be maybe in like in an office, or even like Dad's computer den. Sound probably would have been a very low priority. Although this is a good card. This is a good sound card, but you know, I'm not going for all out here. I've got the RAM. Yeah, I think this is gonna meet all our needs. This thing came out, well, this one's labeled 95, so this fits into our time period of 1994 to, you know, 95-ish. Nicely. So those are the two main things, video and sound. I'll probably throw a couple miscellaneous things in there, like a network card or a modem that I'm not gonna use just because I've got the cards laying around. And that's about it. So the next update should be this thing up and running. Okay, the fun never ends with these things. Okay, look at this. Now, keep in mind it was working perfect yesterday. I installed these cards, and now, okay, watch. Wait, I'm just gonna touch it. I'm just gonna touch it. Any movement resets it. So like if I tap it, it resets. If I, don't, and then I put in a floppy, it resets. I detached the reset button, and if you just tap it, it resets. I'm looking around, maybe if something's making contact with the case, that is very likely the problem, but I can't figure it out. Oh, it's so annoying. Watch, I'm just gonna tap it. Oh my god, okay. I'm gonna look for what the problem is. Two issues. The one with the hole hitting it and it's shorting out or whatever. Haven't solved that yet. I don't know. The only thing I have figured out is when it's laying down like this, it doesn't really happen. Unless I like give it a good kick in the front here, it doesn't reset. I can slap it and pound it and it keeps working. If I turn it upright, like literally if I breathe on it, it will reset. Even if I don't touch it after a minute or so, it will usually reset. So I don't know. I was thinking maybe it's got to be something's touching, and when it's in an upright position, maybe whatever that is like sagging down and touching something. But I tried to look. The motherboard isn't moving either way, so I don't know what it is. That's going to take a little bit of further research and poking around. Other than that stupid little Dallas battery is giving me some troubles, at least in DOS. It gives me a bunch of weird errors. Things happen. Like for instance, I set up the second floppy drive here in the BIOS, and then when it goes into DOS, it doesn't recognize it even though it's set up. In the end, I've been defeated by that board and that Dallas battery. It's just causing too many issues, and at one point, for whatever reason, it just kept freezing on me on boot up. So I'm giving up on that board. I guess a more stubborn and determined PC enthusiast would continue to mess with it to get it working, but I've got a lot of socket 7 AT boards sitting around. So plan C. I'm moving to this board, which is from 95. It seems the BIOS is from 95. Uses a lithium battery, and it is a ATC. There it is. It's an ATC 1000 plus. Pretty much the same thing. 4 16-bit ISA slots, only 3 PCI as opposed to 4, but who cares? This also takes EDO, but it only takes up to 128 EDO, so it's a nice middle ground between the other boards. I'm only putting 64 in there anyway, so who cares? Cache, I think this actually might have 512 K L2 cache built in, but we'll see. It's either that or 256, but I think it's 512. I believe this uses the VX chipset. So yeah, let's see if I have any more luck with this board. Alright, it's like a comedy of tragedies or a tragedy of comedies around here. I tested outside the case, worked fine, installed it, nothing. I mean, it would power up, but I got no beeps, no video, nothing. I tried everything. Took it back out of the case, tried different video cards, it just stopped working. Just, it just stopped working because, that's what they like to do. Okay, so what is this, plan D now? This is another one. This is a later, I think that board was, like, the BIOS was from 95, but it was made in, like, 96 or 97. This has, like, a 97 BIOS. I don't care anymore. It's still AT. You can see this one even is more advanced. It has, slots for SD, RAM, 3 ISA, 4 PCI. It's an AT socket 7. I don't even care anymore as long as it works. It's got a VIA chipset, but let's see if this one works. See what kind of fun this one. Yeah, so let's see what kind of fun we can have with this board. I mean, if I was more determined, I mean, I might troubleshoot those other boards. I think that one would be fine if I could get a new Dallas real-time clock, or if I could mod that one. But I'm just being impatient. At this point, I just want it to work. So we're just going to try this board, and I don't really care if the board's completely error correct. Everything else pretty much is, so whatever, as long as it works at this point. So let's see what this one does. Hello. Well, this is like the third day I've been working on this project. I still haven't figured out what shorts it when it's standing upright, but what is it? 3 strikes, you're out. This is like 4 strikes. You're out here. First board, Dallas battery, just screwed it over. Wouldn't get past post. Okay. Second board, another Dallas battery. Got it to run, loaded up Windows, just errors, instability, and then finally it just stopped booting correctly. It would get into Windows 95 and all the icons would turn like ghost white, and it just did this consistently. I chalked it up to the battery was dead. It was giving it weird issues. Okay. Next, another board. This one I actually used this in my socket 7 board. It worked fine. I tested it, worked fine. Got it in the case, dead. Took it out of the case, troubleshot it, dead, just dead. Don't know what happened, just dead. Okay, that was 3 strikes. Fourth board. Now this is a newer one. This is probably from I was like, okay, screw it. I'm gonna throw my strict period correctness out the window. Screw it. I'm gonna go with this board. It's a later AT board, like 97, 98. I'll just use the other vintage parts, even although 98, that's still a vintage part, but it's new for an AT board. Put it all together. CMOS battery, lithium battery now, seem to be working fine. No conflicts. Great, working fine. Now I have a problem with the hard drive. Every time I go to load it up, if you write anything, or if you do anything with a hard drive, reading or writing, it locks up, and the computer display cuts out, and it locks up, and the LED light for hard drive activity just stays frozen on. So I can get into that I've reformatted it. I've tried to, if you do scan disk on it, it locks up. If you try installing DOS, it actually wrote a little bit. It got to like 8% and it was writing to it, and then when it started writing to it again, it locked up. So I'm guessing the hard drive just decided to die. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to put another hard drive in. Frustrating thing with this stuff is it never fails. I've said it before, when you think you've got a relatively easy project, Pentium 90, pretty straightforward. We're not working with super archaic stuff. I've got a lot of experience with this era. Couple hours, if that. It's now like a 3-day project. You have to have a lot of patience when you do this stuff, and you have to, part of you, it's frustrating, but part of you has to enjoy this troubleshooting, problem solving thing, because it could be one of so many things. It could be something complex beyond my abilities to fix. It could be something simple like a jumper that's misplaced or not put on right. But yeah, it gets to the point sometimes where it's almost like what do they call, like a tragedy of comedy or a comedy of tragedies or something. But I'm gonna try another hard drive. Actually, the video is probably already longer and more sidetracked than I hoped it would be. I wanted to focus on this this machine up and running. I don't know. I might edit it down, but although it is I guess it might be interesting to watch this progression of problems. It's annoying. I'm gonna keep working at it. So I have other hard drives. I like this one because it was very period correct. It's like 95, 800 and some megabytes. It was a decent. Plus, it had the hookup to the LED. I don't know if my replacement drive is even going to have the jumpers for the LED hookup to the thing. I don't know. So I just want to get this thing working. I don't even care about period correctness now. I could wait and order more parts, but we'll see how it goes. Patience. When you're working with this garbage, when you're working with this crap, patience is a virtue. So, back again with this drive. Interestingly, the other drive I tried, which was this guy, this compact, slightly newer, 1 gigabyte, failed. So I started thinking, well, maybe the onboard IDE controller is fried. So I put in a good old PCI IDE controller, ATA 100, and it seems to be working. So maybe that was the problem. Maybe the IDE controller was fried on this motherboard, which is, I mean, again, we're off our period correctness, but I don't really have any other choice in this matter, because I have to find a workaround around that dead IDE controller. So let's keep our fingers crossed and hope now it will work. Hey guys, just a little update here. It's probably been like 1, maybe 2 hours that have elapsed. The whole time I've been doing nothing but trying to get the CD-ROM drive to be recognized. As we found out before, the onboard IDE controller is shot. But for whatever reason, it was the only thing that was recognizing the CD, not just this, any CD-ROM drive. So I have this, this PCI controller card. I've actually tried 2 of them. They see the hard drive, no problem, but they would not. They would see the CD-ROM drive, but then when DOS boot up, like, the drivers wouldn't kick in. It wasn't seen or recognized then. I tried everything. Slave, I tried it as master, I tried it on the other thing. I even tried hooking it up through the sound card. Nothing worked. Finally, the only thing that seemed to work, for whatever reason, was putting in another IDE controller, this time an ISA, IDE controller, and just hooking it up through that. So now that works, so now I have 2 freaking, IDE controllers. One of them is solely controlling the hard drive, and one of them is solely controlling the CD-ROM drive. And that seems to be the only way I've been able to get this thing to work. It's annoying because it slows down the boot time, because both of these have to, load their BIOS and detect and do all that crap. It's a little annoying, but it's the only way I've gotten it to work. But finally, I've gotten it to work. Maybe, unless, more errors pop up as I go into this more. But so far, it looks okay. So I'm gonna get this tower of power running. I mean, even after everything is done here, I still gotta figure out the damn why I can't get it to sit vertical. All right, this is like a montage of fails. Well, this is a success. All right, guys, check it out. Figured it out. Well, it wasn't too hard to figure out, actually. Well, I did take this power supply out, and unfortunately, this case, how it is, it's not exactly proprietary, but it needs this hulking power supply. You'd have to really rig something up to use like a standard AT or ATX power supply. How it's set up, there's a little, like, thing that comes out for this to sit on, a little stand. This case really wants this giant hulking power supply. So anything else, it just wouldn't really fit right and it'd be weird. So I ended up taking this out and I opened it up, and it was something simple. Just one of the little connectors inside the power supply was loose, and I just put it back in and tightened it down, and it's good now. So we're good to go. So I think the 90 megahertz tower of power is finally ready. Finally. Alright, let's get to some gameplay here. There's my post screen. I always like to show my PC booting up when I do these videos. But anyways, yeah, I didn't take a whole lot of capture footage here because I'm still having trouble with my capture solution for DOS. I'm using a PCI to DVI card, or PCE to DVI card. It's like $1,000 capture card. I didn't pay anywhere near that for it, but it's a top-of-the-line card, and I'm just having trouble with it. The image isn't as nice as I'd want it to be. Just the capture software, I've tried all kind of capture software. I'm just having trouble capturing stuff. Music, like sound goes out of sync if I try to do it as I'm converting it, so I have to take it as AVI, and it just eats up so much space, and then I have to convert it, and then it does it in pieces, and I have to like splice it together. I don't know, maybe I need to buy some better like capture software to run with it, but like here's Windows 3.1, it just wouldn't capture it correctly. Well, that first part of it, but yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, it's nicer. I think it looks marginally better, or a little better than my S-Video solution, at least with like text. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's not the card. It's probably the settings. There's something I'm just not doing right, and it's not a very user-friendly card. For Windows stuff and up higher resolution, I have an AverMeteor card, which is great. But so here's Dark Forces. The game runs fine on this machine. Runs great, actually. I tried to pick games and stuff from the time period. I believe this is a 94 game. So, obviously, no problem. Next up we have Rebel Assault 2. I believe this is a 94-95 game, kind of like an FMV-ish game. I just died. That was my first time ever playing. But yeah, this game runs fine too. So here's Magic Carpet. I believe this is a 94-95 era game. I have such a hard time controlling this game. You may notice there's no sound. I couldn't get the sound to work, even though it says it supports the AW32, which also means it should support the Sound Blaster 32. I just couldn't get sound to work. But yeah, here I'm struggling to control the thing. I can never tell if this game's running too fast or not. I mean, the people look like they're moving around at a reasonable speed down there, so it's not an unplayable speed. I just don't know if it's playing a little too fast. It might be, but I don't know. The game's so hard to control. Alright, and then we've got Quake, of course, just to see, because this is a little bit more intensive game. Of course, we have it running in software mode, because I do not have a 3D accelerator card in this thing. It's the PCI 2D Mach 32 from ATI, and yeah, the game runs fine. I mean, I didn't play it extensively, but it seemed to run just fine. Okay, so now that it's put together, it's been running. I've been running this thing. I had it sitting on for a couple hours. Played a couple games, as you just saw. A couple other games I didn't record footage for. Things pretty stable. So I mean, did I succeed in this project? Well, yes and no. I'm a little disappointed in the fact that it didn't fulfill my original vision. Yes, it is up and running. But it's not the strictly period era correct machine I wanted to put together originally. You know, and it's kind of I mean, socket 7 motherboards are like, you know, some of the easiest. That's what beginners into retro computing get into, and I just had so much trouble. This is like the fourth motherboard I had to put in here. Part of that's due to, you know, things like those damn Dallas, those real-time clock batteries. And I mean, part of it's also my laziness. I just don't want to get into drilling into those and modding them and whatnot. Third motherboard just died for whatever reason. And I mean, the motherboard in there, it's good, it's working, but, you know, it's really not part of my vision. It's a little bit later. I think it's like a 1998 motherboard. You know, so, I mean, even though it's AT, it's not really fulfilling that vision, although, I mean, it's more or less the same. You know, the CD-ROM drive, I don't feel too bad about that, because even though it's a later drive and it's a rewritable and it's much faster, finding good working, you know, quad speed and dual speed CD-ROM drives is it's getting a little bit hard to do. I mean, it's basically doing the same task. It would be cool, but, you know, I mean, other than that, it's pretty much like the PCI, PCI hard drive controller. I mean, it's kind of a shame I had to use that. But even this board had some problems. Its IDE controller was apparently shot, so I had no other way to get this thing running. So that's another kind of modern part that goes beyond the scope, my original scope. I think this thing, I mean, it's mostly, you know, it's like 80% era, you know, what I was looking for, but it's still that 20-25% that just, you know, I guess I'm a little bit disappointed in the build that way. Other than that, it performs exactly how I hoped and thought it would perform. So that's not really the issue. This case, though, I've so grown to love this stupid, giant, oversized case. In a way, this machine was built because of this case. I think aesthetics for me with old PCs is very important. So I try to match CPUs with kind of that, with the case. You know, I mean, this case, it does have an older styling, but I actually put, like, thought into what kind of motherboard and CPU I wanted into this thing, and it's to the point I really love this case, and I want to keep it very much so, but it's just so big. You know, especially with the future, if I move from here, especially if I move back home, you know, lugging this giant case is going to be a lot harder than, say, if I had, you know, a mini ATX or a mini AT tower compared to this thing. Do I want to find a way to haul or ship this thing 2,000 miles? No. But ideally, over there, I think you can see it right there. That's a smaller AT tower I have, and that's where I have my Pentium 66 in there. It's I think it's socket 4 or 5. I always get a little bit confused with that. Socket 4, I think. Yeah, but that's my Pentium 66. And I think ideally I would want to take that motherboard and those parts out and put them in this case. Because that was a very, very, very high-end CPU for the time, and that would fit into the period of like 93 or 94, I think, into this big giant case. I think it would match up a little bit better, although I still think, you know, anything from like a Pentium 120 down is suitable for this case. But I don't know, I just feel like I need something really powerful in this, and when I think of 90s power, I think of the original Pentium. But yeah, I mean, I know I have a friend that's kind of eyeing this case, and I kind of said he could have it when I was done with it, but I'm kind of really falling for this case, even though I have nowhere to put it. So maybe if I hold on to it for a little bit, maybe a situation I get rid of a couple other extra computers and find a place to put this. Ideally in the future, I'd probably take my Pentium 66 motherboard and all that, put it in there, you know, make it more of 100% error complete, and I think I'd be happy with that build. But it's just, I don't know where to put this thing. It's just big and awkward and heavy, and unnecessarily big for my uses and reasons. But I just like it. I like it. But I mean, that's about it. I mean, other than that, it's turned out, it's working. It's a working build. Like I said, not completely how I wanted it, not my initial vision, but, you know, it worked. And at the very least, I hope the video showed that, you know, just keep trying at these things. You know, usually you could get it done. I figured out the power supply problem. There's always so many workarounds. I mean, even though the IDE controller was shot, you find solutions. It's frustrating. I mean, I put in the PCI card, it run the hard drive and the you know, the hard drive and everything fine, and then the other drive, I think it was the C drive. I don't even remember at this point. Floppy drive. I don't remember. It's been a week since I put it together, but something else wasn't messed. So I had to put in another, you know, an ISA card to control that. It was kind of a hassle, but it kind of worked out in the end. So there's usually a lot of workarounds you can do with old computers in general, to get them running. A lot of options, especially if you have PCI and ISA slots. That gives you a lot of options for expansion cards that let you do various things. So always keep that in mind. But yeah, that is the Pentium 90 Tower of Power here. Like I said, I might have different plans for this in the future. I might just get rid of it. I might keep it and put that Pentium 66 in it. I don't know yet. But thank you for watching. Thank you for watching my videos, and I really appreciate it. If you liked it, subscribe, and thank you all again. Have a good one. I'm back. Real quick, not to make this video already too long, but in case you were wondering, just this little add-on I'm doing before I post it, the video, but you might be wondering, if you're going for era-specific parts and period correctness, why even bother with the PCI controller? Why not run everything off the IDE, the ISA IDE controller, which would be, you know, more period correct and stuff? Well, a couple reasons. One is it only has one connector, so that means it will support two IDE devices, no problem, right? CD-ROM drive and hard drive. Well, unfortunately, that is the farthest up ISA slot, and I just have no cables that would be long enough. See, this case, it's just too far away, it's too tall. Now you think, well, you can move stuff down. Well, no. So these slots are from up here are actually different than the ones down here. So I actually can't move the CD drive down because where it is, it just doesn't line up with any of these. So I'd have to rig something up, and it would be annoying. And the hard drive, I'd have to take it out of the little enclosure thing, so I wouldn't have that cool plate on the front. That might be able to fit, but even then, it still won't reach. So even if I put the hard drive lowest down, it's just not gonna reach. So it's just a little bit more hassle than it's worth. My other option, I guess I could pull out an ISA IDE controller that has two IDE connectors, so it would support 4 IDE devices, and I just use one cable for the hard drive and one cable for the CD-ROM drive. But I just don't feel like digging through my boxes and using up one of those cards in this machine right now. I'm pretty much done with this setup. Like I said, I don't know if I'm going to keep this case yet, but I think I might put something different in it. This was just kind of a fun little side project. So yes, it can be done, but that's why I haven't done it. So, okay, video's already way too long. Thanks again for watching.